The Dillinger Escape Plan is a mathcore band formed in New Jersey in '97. They immediately proved to be one of the leading bands in this genre, creating an insane mix of heavy-hitting screams, technical guitar work, mind-bending rhythms, and oddly placed melodies. Over the years, they've put massive amounts of focus and energy into making every song their best song yet, and every show the best one and possibly the last one they would ever do. The band was active for 2 decades and has covered a lot of ground since the beginning, but in this video we'll take a closer look into their history and output between 1997 and '99. Now, the Dillinger Escape Plan is an American mathcore band that was formed in Morris Plains, New Jersey in '97. They evolved from the hardcore punk band Arcane, a band that were very politically oriented to begin with. Vocalists Dimitri Manakakis and Brad McMahon, guitarist Ben Weinman, bassist Bruce Fulton, and drummer Chris Penny eventually got tired of writing music that was so formulaic. But firm in his decision to not give up the band, Ben Weinman encouraged them to turn their music around and go in a different direction. Eventually, they hired bassist Adam Dole and guitarist Derek Brantley after McMahon and Fulton left the band. Together, they did the last concert under the Arcane moniker in support of the metalcore Godfathers Overcast. The show was organized by a friend of the band, Matt Backerman. This was a guy who had just put together his own record label, Now or Never Records, and offered the band to help them record their first self-titled EP. The band was nameless for quite some time until a friend of them suggested the name The Dillinger Escape Plan after watching a documentary about John Dillinger, a notorious bank robber who managed to escape from prison on multiple occasions. Weinman called Steve Evans, the producer who had worked with The Dead Guy, another metalcore band from New Jersey that the guys were into. They got Evans to produce their EP and recorded this without the help of guitarist Derek Brantley, as they simply lost contact with him after their second show. Now, the 6-track EP was released in '97, giving the band an incentive to do a small club tour in the northeastern parts of the US. John Fulton filled in the space as second guitarist, and during the next year they made another EP together called Under the Running Board. As they kept on working and playing shows, they gained the reputation for being an outstanding live act, with explosive energy on stage that in some instances ended in violence. In addition, they also added technical facets to the metalcore genre that very few bands had done before them. Before they started to work on their debut album, bassist Adam Dole got involved in a car accident. Although it was far from a catastrophic collision, it was the bad timing that got Dole into trouble. He was just about to pick up a CD from underneath the stereo when the accident happened. And in this awkward position, he managed to twist or put extra pressure on his spine, causing him to get paralyzed. As a result, guitarist Weinman had to cover both bass and guitar duties on the album. When the band eventually released Calculating Infinity on September 28th of '99, it was met with tons of positive acclaim that even got the attention of Mike Patton, the vocalist of Faith No More and Mr. Bungle, among so many other projects. He was so impressed that he asked the band to tour with Mr. Bungle for a couple of months, something that definitely helped them create a better reputation. They also learned quite a bit from what Mr. Bungle did on stage and what they did in preparation for every show.
You've taught me a lot, whether you know it or not. Like when we went on that Bungle tour, to see you carrying your own gear on stage, sound checking, being meticulous about everything, being extremely frugal about those type of things, but not compromising in any way about the sound.
The band lineup during the recording of Calculating Infinity was made up of Dimitri on vocals, Ben on guitar and bass, Brian on guitar, and Chris Penny on drums and keyboards. After the album's release, they were also joined by the ex-MOD bassist Jeff Wood, who replaced Dole after his accident. Now, as mentioned earlier, Calculating Infinity was released in the end of 1999, and this was their only full-length album to feature the vocalist Dimitri Minakakis before he left the band in 2001. The album was recorded at Tracks East Recording Studio in South River, New Jersey, and together with producer Steve Evans, they made an album that the guitarist Ben Weinman initially said they were very unhappy with. They experienced a lot of technical limitations during the sessions, and as Weinman mentioned in an interview, in the studio it was really hard because at the time we didn't use Pro Tools and did everything to tape. It's easy to see their frustration when they had to record this onto tape, a medium where you basically only have one chance to succeed. But this wasn't the only issue. They eventually ran out of money as well, so the band members resorted to trade their publishing rights with their label to acquire a couple of extra grand to finish up the recordings. At the time, they didn't think about their financial future. They only cared about making the most amazing record possible. And they did make an amazing record. The album sold over 100,000 copies, making them the biggest selling band in the Relapse Records catalog at the time. Moving on to the sound of this album, most of the stuff that you'll find on here is regarded as mathcore, which basically means that they have the same intensity that you'll find in a lot of hardcore punk music, but it's also mixed with these unpredictable tempo changes and complex time signatures. People have also labeled their music experimental metal, grindcore, and metalcore. But aside from all the labels, the band's bottom line intention was to create a challenging listening experience. In guitarist Weinman's own words, Calculating Infinity was us effectively ripping up the music theory book. If someone said, "Don't harmonize with a second, it just sounds out of tune," then every single lead we did would harmonize with a second. It sounded disgusting, but we did it. Dimitri, for the most part, wrote and sang about dysfunctional relationships, insecurity, and love. And based on the Hollywood and Disney made-up scenario of forever lasting love, they came up with the name Calculating Infinity as an ironic statement on the concept. Let's see how long we can calculate before this blows up in our face. Now, this album has been regarded as one of the best metalcore albums of all time, often mentioned in the same phrase as albums like Jane Doe by Converge, Alive or Just Breathing by Killswitch Engage, and Sempiternal by Bring Me the Horizon. And the reason why they're mentioned amongst the giants of this genre might have something to do with the mindset they had around their music.
Let's just not even think about like this big body of work. Let's just put everything we have into every song as if we don't really have to write a record worth of songs. And that's what we did.
Something that they I was replaced by Greg Puciato. It was the bad timing that got Joel into trouble. When the band released Calculating Infinity on September